Hello, do you hear it? Do you see the thing there? See if you have anything from on the camera. Hello, hello. Is it working? Oh. Anyways, let's see. Yeah, she just wants to plug in her camera to this.
The good news is the cameras here. The bad news is from television.
Oh, it's not necessarily bad.
Hello.
We'll get the kids on the post.
Hello, do you hear it there? Should be coming through now.
Do you want to sit up there for
Microphone level?
now? Yeah. So we start?
What?
The quality of the sound is...
It's loud?
No, the quality of the audio itself is a little fuzzy. The quality of the audio itself is a little
Fuzzy?
It's not quite there.
Okay. Any better with this one?
I'll take the older ones.
Okay, yeah.
Put in the closet. That's a big one. Don't worry, I'm going back there and got a shuffleboard. I think everything that's off this country. I really don't care. I went there today, I couldn't find it. I'm trying to get it.
So is the sound good?
I take everything out of here.
I think I got to send away for those rapids.
Yeah, I want to know the water. They make it look, at least now the region stands out.
Good afternoon. Hi, I'm Council Member Elizabeth Crowley. I want to thank you all for gathering here today on this very special afternoon as we do a very important street co-naming. From Forest Park Drive to Forest Park Memorial Drive. Before we begin, I'd like to ask the Franklin K. Lane ROTC Honor Guard to please come up so we could say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Colors and right, or over. Colors, on earth, colors. Left, peace and others.
Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
On earth, others. Right. Or over.
I'd like to now ask the members of the St. Thomas the Apostle Choir to come up to sing God Bless America. the saxophone. Go on. Thank you, Bill. I'd like to ask the Reverend Dr. Norman Whitemere Jr. of All Saints Episcopalian Church to please lead us in the invocation.
Good morning.
Morning.
Let us pray. God, the King of glory, in whose hands are the living and the dead, we give you thanks for all those who have laid down their lives in the service of our country. And we thank you for blessing us with memorials by which to remember them. Grant to the fallen your mercy and the light of your presence. Help us never to forget the agony of war, and those who served and those who died. Move us to put away hatred, bitterness, and prejudice, and guide us always to seek justice and peace. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend. And I want to thank everybody for gathering today as we hold this very important street co-naming of Forest Park Drive to Forest Park Memorial Drive. It is important to recognize that this park has several memorials and monuments in recognition to those soldiers who gave their lives and the returning veterans who survived World War I, World War II, and the Korean War. Strack Pond remembers the first Woodhaven soldier who died in the Vietnam War. There are also 2 September 11th memorials in recognition of those who lost their lives in their terror attacks. And we can never forget Victory Field, which was dedicated in memory of the unknown soldier of World War I. Today's co-naming continues the tradition in this park of remembering our heroes. In 1919, after World War I ended, residents of Woodhaven, together with the newly formed American Legion Post 118, created a living memorial to the fallen soldiers of their hometown by planting over 70 trees along this drive, one for each of the men who didn't return home. A living memorial that would honor and carry on their legacy. That is why the City Council passed legislation formally co-naming this street Forest Park Memorial Drive to keep the memory of them alive, just as these trees are today. This will now be the site of the nation's first memorial drive of its kind. I want to thank the servicemen and women who are here today for their commitment and for their service. Please join me in a round of applause. And I would like all our servicemen and women to please stand up. We can continue our round of applause. Thank you for your service. Thank you. By co-naming this street Forest Park Memorial Drive, we believe this will be a lasting reminder for all those who travel through the park of the sacrifices made to protect our country's freedom. I'd like to thank the American Legion Post 118, the very first post in New York State, which continues Woodhaven's Memorial Day Remembrance Ceremonies. Mr. Ed Wendell, the Executive Director of Woodhaven Cultural and Historical Society, who uncovered this forgotten history and was the lead supporter of the co-naming. Our representatives from the Queens Historical Society, the Department of Transportation, the Department of Parks and Recreation, and of course our good state senator Joe Addabbo, who's here today, and our assembly member Mike Miller. All together, this advocacy came in putting this co-naming together, and it's the result of their work, and it will stand here for generations to come. It was truly a community effort, and I'm honored to have been a part of it with them. There are a number of individuals. Thank you. There are a number of individuals I want to recognize who I haven't recognized yet, and then I would like to call up a few, to say a few words on behalf of the co-naming. We have Kenny Wilson here, Transportation Chair of Community Board 9. Hector Johnson, Commander for 118, American Legion Post. Martin Kohlberg, President of Woodhaven Residents Block Association. Ken Rudswick, who is a veteran and brought the military Jeep here today. Cadet Major Owens Jr. of the ROTC. The Auxiliary Force and the 102 Precinct both for their help in securing the street today and keeping us safe for this important co-naming. Jennifer Farley, President of the American Legion Auxiliary 118, the President of American Legion of Queens County. Paul Schottenheimer, 110th District American Legion. Raj Ramperson, I've seen him here. He's the Chair of Community Board 9. Now I'd like to call Senator Joe Addabbo up to say a few words.
Thank you, Councilmember Crowley. Good afternoon, everybody. It is an honor to be here. And first, when I have so many veterans in front of me, I'm of a belief that every day is Veterans Day. So to all our veterans, thank you very much for your commitment and dedication and service to our country. Thank you. And really, to be here is to express appreciation on a number of levels. Certainly to our veterans. And the fact that, we are in the month of May. It's a great month. Month of mothers. So for all mothers out there, happy belated Mother's Day. But we take a moment at the end of the month to appreciate this ultimate sacrifice of our veterans. Again, Memorial Day. And that's why it's so important to be here. And again, the appreciation that I have that my people, my constituents, allowed me the opportunity to represent them and work with fine individuals who are also elected officials, like Councilmember Crowley, Assemblymember Mike Miller, and others, who, again, because of their hard work, we're here today to do this renaming. And to work with community leaders like Post 118, my fellow Malloy Stanner, Ed Wendell,
you know, to work with community leaders to make sure that the community is great, but once again, that we are able to do this co-renaming. And for me, this co-renaming, when I see this sign, it's going to be a constant reminder, not only of the service and dedication of our veterans here with us, and a memorial to those who have made the ultimate sacrifice who have passed away, but a reminder to me personally of the work we still have to do for the 900,000 veterans in our state in terms of health care and homelessness and suicide rate, the work on every level of government that we still have to do each and every day for our veterans. That's what this co-rename is going to mean to me. So again, I am so appreciative of the honor to be able to be here today. Councilmember Crowley, thank you so much. Thank you all.
Thank you, Senator Addabbo, true advocate for our veterans. Another true advocate for our veterans is our local assembly member, the Honorable Michael Miller.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor and a privilege for me to be here today. When I first heard about this idea, I thought it was a great idea. I had to jump on board to support it, especially for all our veterans, all my friends that, you know, day in and day out, always advocating for veterans. Colonel Schottenhamel, you know, has a program where he buries indigent veterans. Vietnam Chapter 32 as well. Every day, looking out for our veterans. So I just want to thank you for that and all our veterans each day that fight for the benefits of our veterans. So a round of applause for all of our veterans, please. I'd like to thank our council member for starting this co-naming, and Ed Waddell and the Woodhaven Historical Society for pushing for that. So it's an honor for me to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Assembly Member. Now I would like to now call up John Lawless, the former post commander of the 118th American Legion.
Good afternoon. I want to start by thanking Councilmember Crowley for supporting this program and making it possible. I would be remiss if I didn't give a special good afternoon to Ed Waddell, who actually started this process over 2 years ago and made this event possible. I want to give my own special recognition to Jen Farley, the president of Our Ladies Auxiliary. And on behalf of Woodhaven Post 118 and Our Ladies Auxiliary, I want to thank you for the recognition and honor you have bestowed on our post and its members, past and present. On November 11th in 2018, we will celebrate the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I. The American Legion was founded in Paris in 1919 by veterans of the American Expeditionary Force. The American Legion today is the largest veteran service organization in America. Our post, Woodhaven Post 118, received its charter in 1920, and many of our founding members served in World War I and possibly knew their neighbors who fell in that struggle and whose memory we honor today. Since its inception, Woodhaven Post 118 has been active and positive presence in the Woodhaven community. Each year on Veterans Day and Memorial Day, we conduct a public ceremony marking that event, and we host an open house at our post to members of the community. Over the years, with the help of the Ladies Auxiliary, we have conducted Americanism programs in our local schools to enhance our children's education in our country's history and traditions. Each year we host a special Memorial Day program for the students of PS 60 on the Friday before Memorial Day. Also working in tandem with Our Ladies Auxiliary, we sponsor students each year to attend the statewide American Legion program known as Boys State, Girls State. Our post is also a sponsor to the Wounded Warrior Project, and we contribute to the Legion Riders who travel to Washington, D.C. each year over the Memorial Day weekend and visit our wounded servicemen and women. Since 2011, Woodhaven Post 118 has been a sponsor in the Adopt a Platoon program, which benefits units of the 10th Mountain Division while they are deployed overseas. Through these efforts over the years, Woodhaven Post 118 strives to uphold the tenets of the American Legion: to nurture the living, to care for the wounded, and to honor the dead. Thank you again on behalf of my members of the Post.
Thank you, Mr. Lawless. Next, I'd like to invite Mr. Ed Wendell up, the Executive Director of the Woodhaven Cultural and Historic Society, and without whom's work we would not be here today doing this important co-naming. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you. Traditions. You know, traditions are those things that we come together as a society or a family, and we decide that they're important to us. Traditions are those things that make life a little extra special, and time and again we've found that as traditions begin to die, the rest seems to fall apart. This spot where we have gathered today was part of Woodhaven's tradition. Nearly a century ago, it was where the annual Memorial Day parade ended. You know, they used to start at Whiting Square, and they used to go along 91st Avenue to 98th Street, down 98th Street, along Jamaica Avenue, up Forest Parkway, and end here. That's a real hike. In those days, in the earliest days, most of the soldiers who attended were recently returned from their service from the Great War, or what would become known as World War I. Here's something that might interest you. In this very spot, in those early observances, there were many veterans of the Civil War that sat right here as part of the Memorial Day ceremonies. So why was this spot chosen? So it might help to explain by telling you a little bit about the story of a man named Arthur Engels. Have any of you ever heard of him? He was a young man who lived here in Woodhaven. He lived right on Jamaica Avenue. He lived above Young's Butcher Shop, which was a butcher shop that was very popular and was around for about 60 years. Nowadays, or many years later, it became known as Carlo's Pizzeria. So you know the spot where he lived. Every time you pass by, you'll know that's where Arthur Engels lived. He was well known for running around the neighborhood. He would run, and you got to remember, in those days, there wasn't a lot of houses, there was a lot of empty space and farms. And he was a great athlete. He competed at Madison Square Garden, in which he won. He set several world records. Every time people looked up, they saw Arthur running around Woodhaven. He took the nickname, they gave him the nickname King of the Eastern Hurdlers because of the records that he set. So Arthur Engels was drafted into service in early 1918 and went to Camp Upton on Long Island, where he was trained as a supply sergeant. By the end of the year, Arthur Engels, now Lieutenant Engels, was headed over there. But Lieutenant Engels never came home. He received a very bad leg wound, and one can only imagine what this young man must have been thinking, realizing that he was never going to run again. His wound got worse, and within a couple of weeks, he passed away. Back home, families would nervously look at the newspaper every week to see the latest casualties. And at first, it was just a few injuries, but then there were reports of deaths. At first it was 1 soldier, 2 soldiers, 4, 6, 8. Not only from Woodhaven, but from Glendale, Ozone Park, Cypress Hills, Richmond Hill, all around us. Woodhaven was hit extremely hard. There were 70 in all young men who were killed. 70 young men whose promises, the promise to our community would go unfulfilled. So the community looked for a special way to commemorate their sacrifice. And a unique idea was suggested, the planting of these memorial trees, one in each name of the soldier, of each soldier that was killed during the war. And this effort was led by a coalition which would eventually become American Legion Post 118,
led by their first post commander, James Pasta. These trees were planted right along Forest Park Drive, and they were dedicated in a ceremony right here in this very spot 98 years ago. And this is what's important to remember about these trees, because thereafter, the families would come up here for Memorial Day and they would decorate these trees. These trees weren't just a memorial to them. These trees were the embodiment of their loved ones. And they would come up to the tree that represented their soldier, their loved one, and they would decorate it. Each year, the Memorial Day parade would end up here in front of a big granite monument, which was paid for by the community. The granite monument sat either over there, or remember there used to be a triangle over here in the middle? We think it might have sat there. And then what happened was, after all those years of decorating and ending the parades here, they moved the monument. And the reason they moved it was they widened Woodhaven Boulevard. They knocked down the old American Legion. The city paid them money. They built a new American Legion with a beautiful front yard. And the American Legion said, hey, we need something to go in our front yard. And they moved the monument from here to where it sits now on 89th Avenue in the front of the American Legion. And anytime you go there, whether you go for the senior center or any kind of community event, look at that monument and see those names and realize that those names correspond to these trees. And you'll see Arthur Engel's name on that monument. The trees over time were forgotten until a few years ago when residents from the community and students from St. Thomas the Apostle and members of the ROTC from Franklin K. Lane joined American Legion Post 118 and Post 118's American Legion Auxiliary and revived the tradition of decorating these trees. And now with this co-naming, which was done with great speed, thanks to a swift response from Councilmember Elizabeth Crowley and her staff, led by Kate Mooney, more people will learn of this tradition and remember and honor the sacrifice of the 70 young men from Woodhaven who went over there and never came home. But the co-naming is not just about these young men and their sacrifices. This road between here and Glendale and Richmond Hill contains several memorials, including Strack Pond, which was named after Lawrence Strack, the first local soldier to lose his life in Vietnam. The pond used to be a ball field where Lawrence played as a boy. And this past March marked 50 years since Lawrence Strack gave his life, and his name lives on here in Forest Park Memorial Drive. From World War II through the Korean War, memorials to the sacrifices of the soldier can be found along this road. And now, thanks to the support of our local elected officials, our local groups and organizations, and our community, this road has a name that lives up to the names of Lieutenant Arthur Engels and Private First Class Lawrence Strack. And it would make their families proud. It'll help future generations keep up the tradition of remembering their sacrifices and supporting those young men and women currently in harm's way. So ladies and gentlemen, we proudly welcome you to Forest Park Memorial Drive. Thank you.
Before we hear again from Bill Gotti on the saxophone, I want to recognize a few people who have joined us. Alan Watson of the Historical Society, Queens Historical Society, Helen Day of Richmond Hill Historical Society, Lisa Gomes of CB9 District Manager, and